Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We now move to our first panel discussion of the day on the theme Stakeholder Collaboration for ESG-Driven CSR Partnerships that Deliver Results. To moderate this session, we are joined by Mr. Anil Padmanabhan, Senior Journalist and former Managing Editor, Mint. With a career spanning nearly 4 decades, Mr. Padmanabhan has worked with India's leading publications, including Press Trust of India, Business Standard, India Today, and Mint. An Iman Fellow at Harvard, his work has consistently explored the intersection of politics, economics, and policy. Today, through his columns, television appearances, and policy discussions, he continues to shape national debates. Joining us on the panel, we have Mr. Vijay Chauhan, Executive Director, Deloitte India. Mr. Chauhan is a fiscal policy and trade facilitation expert with over 30 years of experience. A former officer of the Indian Revenue Services, he has served across key departments of the Ministry of Finance and led customs administration at India's largest ports. He is currently completing his PhD in public policy at Jindal University and also serves as visiting faculty at National Law University Meghalaya and Ashoka University. I also welcome Mr. D.V. Shastry, Executive Director, Natural Gas Society. With over 40 years of foundational experience in India's natural gas sector, Mr. Shastry has contributed to its growth through roles in project management, operations, R&D, human resources, and capacity building. His leadership has strengthened industry-academia linkages, nurtured young professionals, and shaped national initiatives in energy and sustainability. Having represented India at global forums, he brings a wealth of knowledge that connects technical expertise with long-term sectoral vision. We are also privileged to have Mr. M. Prabhakar Das, CGM and Head CSR, Power Finance Corporation Limited. With more than 30 years of experience across finance, projects, and corporate functions, Mr. Das leads CSR in one of India's leading public sector undertakings. Over the past 5 years, he has steered large-scale social inventions in education, health, and rural development, aligning corporate priorities with national goals. His work demonstrates how PSUs can play a transformative role in embedding CSR within ESG, ensuring development that is both impactful and sustainable. Next, I welcome Mr. Prabhakar Jain, Head CSR, DS Group. Mr. Jain has led impactful programs across water, livelihoods, education, health, and gender equality, many of which have been recognized by the Ministry of Jal Shakti, FICCI, CII, and other reputed institutions. His notable initiatives include Water Economic Zones to support marginal farmers, Creativity Adda to promote self-designed learning, and Project Samya, which sensitizes young boys on gender equity. Passionate about building partnerships, he continues to design innovative, research-driven projects that address complex social challenges. And finally, please welcome Professor Rohan Sarma, Senior Fellow, Center for Responsible Business. A social and behavioral scientist, his work explores the dynamic relationship between business and society, examining both impacts and opportunities. He has worked closely with vulnerable communities on participatory planning, while also advising corporate leaders and policymakers on embedding sustainability into strategy. As a member of the BIS National ESG Standards Committee and India's representative to the ISO Technical Committee on SDGs, he continues to shape standards and policies that guide responsible business globally. I now hand over the session to our moderator, Mr. Padmanabhan.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, CSR, for having me here. And well, just give them a minute for everybody to get in and take their seats. So the previous session, which I was lucky enough to sit through most of it, I was just telling some fellow panelists, it's in a way it sets the context for what we are going to discuss right now. Our effort is to look at the collaboration for ESG-driven CSR basically, I was a little confused at the end of the first session because some of the speakers, whether it was a holy marriage or unholy marriage between the two. But regardless, I think our panelists will probably take a deep dive into this. I just wanted to just set the context very briefly. When we talk of these partnerships, if towards the end of the panel, the passion which the speaker displayed, it kind of came across that it's not even a work in progress, but with respect, I would disagree. Just citing two examples to you, and very recent relatively. We all remember the COVID-19 pandemic. It's only 5 years old, and how it devastated. What started as a health epidemic became an economic disaster, not just for India but for the entire world. But one aspect of it was the shortage of oxygen, and that is where we saw this CSR, ESG kind of marriage that we witnessed, where companies, government, and the municipalities, authorities all converged to create the kind of facilities. Specifically, you had this Give India, Ola, and the government which collaborated for oxygen on wheels, and which saved, I'm sure, millions of lives. We can't ever forget what these people achieved. Similarly, separately, you've seen the Infosys Foundation. They stepped in and collaborated with Akshay Patra, which I think all of you know. And what Infi brought to the table was systems management. They brought their skill sets, merged it with the ground level work that Akshay Patra does, and they created very efficient work systems which enabled them to reach a larger footprint. And today, millions of kids all over India do get these midday meals, and it's a form of incentive as well as nutrition, which the last speaker talked about at length on how most of our children still suffer from malnutrition in this country. One of the reasons is the diet. So basically, I just wanted to set that context to tell you that there are shared goals, and what is being attempted is probably we should give it a chance, and rather than going by past experience and precedent. This is new territory, and I'm sure we'll discover synergies and various options. So that's exactly how our panel will attempt, and hopefully they will, in creating an ecosystem of shared value to do public good, very simply put. So what the format we'll follow is each of the speakers, no preference here, beginning from my left, due respect, you'll come in last. Each will go 3 to 5 minutes, share their perspective on what we are going to discuss today. I just suggest that if they can focus on, feel free to depart from this, basically how do ESG frameworks shape CSR, and what ways will this collaboration differ from an ESG-driven CSR world versus a traditional CSR? So if you can just lay it out, everybody is an expert here, barring me. So I would love to learn anyway. So thank you so much. Over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Prabhakar Das. I'm working as Chief General Manager in Padmanabhan Corporation. Sir has explained just now what the difference between the traditional CSR and ESG-driven CSR. So yes, there are a lot of changes. Traditionally, we are just doing in our work as a philanthropical kind of CSR or voluntary kind of CSRs. Now, after implementation of this ESG, so there are a lot of changes in the CSR. The way projects we are taking is something needs to be taken into consideration of all kind of fraction of society, like society and stakeholders and impact of the society. These are taken into consideration. Especially the SEBI has given ESG. The report is compulsory to the all companies, those who are coming under 100 of that Nifty or BS index. So what I experiencing in after that, like I tell you my experience with my company, where if you go for a raising in a fund for a institution, financial institutions, where we investors look into the what is your CSR, what is your ESG report of that your balance sheet. So they are very much into that how you are contributing that society, like in a way the green projects where you are putting the money into the how you are reducing to the carbon footprints and other and the stakeholders like the wealth of the investors. So these are the coming to the picture when you go for the funding to raise in various countries like Europe and other ESN countries. So this play a major role in the any company. The ESG is made it compulsory. Some of the projects we have undergone to at the same time the social projects like we had one project like in a Sitamari project where we implemented a project to uplift the downtrodden society. So where we distributed a goats and some upliftment works, where it works wonderfully. The income level of that Sitamari area, where we have undertaken the project, it was improved. Similarly, and one more project also we have taken into the Maharashtra, where mushroom cultivation. So these the projects, multivation contribution around 1,000 ladies, the group, self-help group, they are developing the projects with that income of that cultivation of that mushrooms. It will give a steady income to the family. So these are the kind of projects which will impact the society, like the ESG, where the impact it's as we growing the organization, that will also see that how the society we are helping into as a organization like PFC. So that will also take into consideration when we impact a CSR projects rather than simply doing in a philanthropic way or in the voluntary based. So these are, but still we are at an initial stage. We need to change so many things. We are not doing still at a level where we want to go for a in a changing environment like implementing the projects where in a big way. So this I would like, this is my initiative. So I would like other speakers to contribute on this, if you'd like to. Thank you.
Should I continue from here? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Anil sir, for initiating this dialogue. I'm Prabhakant. I'm heading this CSR. So it's not about the introduction. कई बार paragraph बहुत अच्छा बनाया जाता है introduction में, but it's all about सोसाइटी के लिए कुछ करने की कोशिश करते हैं, कुछ रिसोर्सेज हैं हमारे पास में. वी आर ट्राइंग आवर बेस्ट टू बेसिकली क्रिएट द मैक्सिमम आउटकम और कैन क्रिएट द इम्पैक्ट ऑन द सोसाइटी. What happened with me actually, my career actually is also evolved along with the journey of the CSR. I started my career in 2005. That time CSR was in very nascent stage. And I would like to actually just read out one definition I studied in 2008. It's a definition of World Business Council for Sustainable Development. They are defining CSR as a continuous commitment by business behave ethical and contribute to economic development while improving the quality of life of the workforce and their family, as well as the local community and the society at large. And this is the same definition for the ESG also. So for me, actually, the CSR was evolving in India just like a sustainability or ESG. It's a very synonymous kind of terminology for that. And Bhaskar sir was involved in drafting the law, and before that, there were 2 voluntary guidelines were also enforced. When I'm going through with 2 voluntary guidelines, those are the perfect draft for the sustainability or ESG thing. But due to various reasons, the law is enacted in a very fast manner. I don't know about the region, but the CSR definition was changed suddenly because of the law. Even we don't have even definition for the CSR also. Just they mentioned that there are certain activities which can be covered under the CSR, but there is no standard definition for CSR in India. So what happened actually when this law was enacted, So whatever journey that we did in last 10 to 15 years after 2000, actually suddenly that stops and CSR seen as a philanthropic work that corporate has to spend 2% for the welfare of the society. It's a good thing. It was backroom agenda. Discussion has started in boardroom, but they also philanthropic. They have resources. They want to do good for the society. So things are started in a philanthropic nature, and suddenly it's evolved. And 2019, it was quite changed once 21 rules were came that this more robust thing has happened, and now we are talking about the impact of our CSR project. So this is the journey when actually I've seen in the CSR sector. At DS Group, we believe that we should leverage our strength for the society. We are primarily a food and beverages company. Farmers are very important stakeholder for us. So we decided to very significant proposition of our component of CSR should be allocated for the farmers' welfare. And farmers need require two major support. The first one, they require the water. So we created a project called Water Economic Zone. So we believe how can we improve the livelihood of farmers through water conservation. So we are very, very focused that whatever conservation work that we are doing for water, it should directly related for the farmers' welfare. It should be linked with the irrigation facility for those farmers. Once they have the water, then what can we do for their agriculture related thing? How can we improve their existing crop thing? How can we basically introduce new crop options for farmers so that their economic condition can be improved? And the last one is very important, that how can we link the market with that thing? If farmer have produce, if they are not get the right kind of market, it will create a lot of challenge. So this is the key and major work that we are doing. We have certain other initiative also, because CSR is not only about the very strategic thing, it's about the immediate need of the stakeholder communities also. It's about the some larger development issues that we are seeing in the society, so we need to contribute in that side also. So this is from our work. And to the last point, how in current scenario, I'm seeing the basically ESG framework is very important component is the materiality assessment. Once we gone through with the materiality assessment, we are able to identify what are the core and critical issues for the company. And in this process, company also identify its strength to contribute in those areas. And I think those insights should be utilized into our CSR strategy. For us, we believe that farmers are important stakeholders, so we believe that we should reach out to those farmers. We started from the generic, but now we are focusing on spices growing farmers because we believe that we can create the significant impact in those lives. So such kind of thing can be, ESG can be helpful for the CSR initiative. But ESG is completely within the fence kind of activity. It's a business process related thing. And ESG is outside your business thing. So that is the fundamental difference I'm seeing in ESG and CSR. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Let me begin with saying that if the ESG guidelines were to be applied to the panel in front of you, we will squarely fail. It does not meet the gender basic minimum of gender diversity. Apologies on behalf of all of us here. If I had a way, I would perhaps request one of you to come and join here. But that aside, I've worn various hats in my life, and I'll combine all of them to put together some very disjointed facts and then tie them all together. The discussion in the morning was very enlightening. My takeaways were just two. One, the subject is too complex and wide. And two, the challenge of ESG or what CSR is trying to achieve is too huge to be left to any one tool or any one institution, and therefore there is a need for collaboration amongst different stakeholders. Let's begin by first conceding that the problem starts essentially with the capitalist system. I'm a student of economics, and I grew up believing that Homo economicus was actually the way the human beings were, which would essentially mean that we were all trying to be maximizing profit. And if that be so, there was need to kind of guide people to behave in a manner which was more sustainable and which was not as damaging to everything that could not be priced. Having said that, 30 years and more of working, if there is one principle which inevitably I face is what gets measured gets done. And therefore, profit will always attract greater attention than sustainability, not because it is less important, but because it is more difficult to measure. Because of that, the other important trend that you would notice is what behavioral economists talk about in terms of nudge. It begins by, calling upon your inherent goodness, saying that human beings were always very nice, can you be nudged, and then realize that it takes you only so far. Look at CSR first, it was voluntary. At that point of time, when I was in the Ministry of Finance, the discussions were essentially, we've already paid the tax. And if you've paid the tax must have been used to meet these requirements, including of provision of all the public goods and bridging the market failures. The fact that it was not sufficient resulted in first a voluntary CSR, which then was made into a mandatory CSR. So there is a responsibility which moves from being voluntary to mandatory. However, the expressions used in the morning sessions refer to giving back. Corporate social responsibility in some sense is giving back. If you made profits, at least give back 2% for it, and you have a huge amount of discretion which is available to you to do that. Let's take, for example, you could engage in social forestry. That's a cause which is very close to my heart because I think greening solves a whole lot of problem. There was discussion about the different shades of green that you notice. Every time I travel to Sri Lanka, I say the green in Sri Lanka is quite different from green in Delhi or perhaps anywhere else. From there, we jump to ESG. The difference from CSR to ESG, in some sense, the way I see it is that instead of giving back, you have to incorporate it in your way of life so that you do it at every stage. Now, ESG has various components. Let me just, again, disjointed fact in some sense, all major concerns that human society has in a democratic government will eventually end up in one of the three forms. What are those three? First, the government can start spending more on it. Two, the government can tax it. And three, the government can make regulations which can have neither of them or any combination of them. And the businesses have to respond to all of these measures, whether they come over a period of time after consultation or with suddenness. And I will now move to give you three examples very briefly that they can come domestically or they can be imposed on you from completely external sources. Let's begin with the external sources. None of us in the room would deny the fact that climate change is one of the biggest issues facing the world. Right? None of us will deny the second derivative from that, which is that fossil fuels are one of the major contributors to climate change or global warming, at least. Climate change is far more complex, but global warming insofar as the studies go. Now jump from there, and that's a huge jump. You have carbon border adjustment mechanism introduced by the European Union, and perhaps likely to be also implemented by the UK and by Japan. That jump is something which becomes very difficult. How do you negotiate with that? That is an area where collaboration amongst different stakeholders, different countries becomes very important. The European Union must ensure that the goods which don't meet with the requirement comes into their country. And yet to say that we will use this to collect taxes, and having been a revenue service officer for 30 years of my life, I can assure you that the European government will actually get addicted to CBAM to ensure that they continue to collect the money rather than actually improve the environment. If you still need an example, I'll give the example of tobacco tax. We call it the sin tax, and the government collects the most amount of money through it, and I'm 100% certain that I will not believe anyone sitting here and saying they actually want the tobacco consumption to go down. So if you get dependent, and that is why I gave the example, this is the most, what should I say, deadly combination of a regulation which gives you revenue to meet the larger environmental objective. Okay? There is another one which is in the pipeline, which is called the EUDR, European Union Deforestation Regulations, which is about the timber which might come in. Don't be surprised if there is another one which might be thrown at you from somewhere else, and I'm not even talking of Trump and more blunt tools of the tariffs. Let's come home. Have you heard of something called extended producer responsibility? Extended producer's responsibility. Now, implementing that has a challenge. So on the one hand, we have extended producer responsibility, and if you heard the finance minister's budget speech this year, tell me if I'll take 2 minutes. If you heard the finance minister's speech this year, there were duty reductions on all kind of metal waste coming into the country. You look at the tariff more closely, we encourage import of used and tires. I had the personal experience, I've spent months trying to understand this very simple phenomena. Why must India allow or encourage import of used tires, cut, and the same thing applies for textiles and so many other products. So on the one hand, we have legislation which encourages import of waste. It's a different matter that Chicago municipal waste also get dumped into the country. And the reasons for that as well. So the short point that I'm trying to make is that there are challenges to protecting the environment. The tools that are developed are implemented in a manner that meets the first line, but it's a complete chaos at the implementation level. There are two things which happens, and if you heard since morning and the references, with due apologies to both of them, is that when you do not have a very sound and robust framework to assess the impact of any of the measures as important as CSR, and ESG has done little better in it, there is a tendency to go for what I call lighthouse projects. There was a reference to, highlighting the projects that media captures. Between a very robust academic assessment of implementation and a beautiful story-driven anecdotal example, having spent years trying to believe that actually data drives the conversation, I now have a far more sober assessment, and I believe that the lighthouse projects work better. And it is because of that that the CSR might lead us to a situation where we might have a whole lot of lighthouse projects, particularly by very large corporates. I'm not 100% sure, and I don't know whether most of you have heard of a project called Vantara in Jamnagar. That would be perhaps the best example of a lighthouse project funded by CSR. I'm not running it down, it does serve a purpose, but if there was to be a more robust and comprehensive assessment of the impact that the CSR was trying to create, I'm not sure what the conclusions would be. With this, I'll conclude for the time being, and any of the aspect that you like, and if that was to be picked up for subsequent discussion, I would love to go back to it. Thank you.
Thank you. I just, before I hand off, yes, I just want to compliment you for flagging the manel part of this debate, and with all due apologies once again to all the ladies in the room. It's not a good start. Okay, Mr. Shastry.
Namaskar and very good afternoon to all of you. See, our topic of discussion is on ESG-driven CSR, partnerships that deliver results. So, I would like to begin by saying that today's era is of 3 C's. That is cooperation, collaboration and competition. All these things can go together. These are not in isolation. Wherever possible, let's cooperate. Wherever healthy competition is applicable, we must do that. And collaboration also, wherever applicable. Now, CSR and ESG, these are integral parts of our country. One of our previous speakers in the inaugural session said कि ये तो इम्पोज कर दिया है बाहर वालों ने, बट ये तो हमारा सेल्फ इम्पोज्ड ही है. हमारी संस्कृति जो है, हमारी कल्चर है, हमारी ट्रेडिशन है. हाउ आई वुड लाइक टू टेल यू, सी ई इज एनवायरमेंट. सो our Veda says, Devhu Shantirantariksha Shanti Prithvi Shantirapah Shantirokhadaya Shanti Vanaspataya Shantir Vishvedevaha Shantir Brahma Shanti. This means that let there be equilibrium between the vegetation or the plants. Let there be equilibrium in space. जो climate change की हम बात कर रहे हैं. अंतरिक्षम शांति शांति ही पृथ्वी. Let there be peace and equilibrium on earth. Shanti Rapah, that means let there be equilibrium in water. Ap means पानी. तो ये हम क्या देख रहे हैं आज, जो हम चाहे उत्तराखंड की कैलेमिटीज हो, चाहे कैलिफोर्निया में जो आग लग रही हो, या स्पेन की फायर हो, या यूरोप में भयंकर गर्मी पड़ रही है, ये सब क्या है? ये इम्बैलेंस की वजह से. सेकंड इज एस इज सोशल. अगेन our culture says Sangachadvam Samvadadam, let's go together. Let society be at harmony and peace and ease. Another thing is corporate social responsibility. तो अंग्रेजी का वर्ड आया, बहुत अच्छी बात है. अगर कोई अच्छी बात चाहे हम हिंदी में कहें, अंग्रेजी में कहें या संस्कृत में कहें, बात तो एक ही है, as long as our objective is met. तो दान की जो हमारे यहाँ कंसेप्ट है, ये कॉर्पोरेट दान ही तो है. आपने जितना कमाया उसमें से एक हिस्सा आप दान देते हैं सोसाइटी के वेलफेयर के लिए. बट दान को भी आपको वाइजली देना है. लॉर्ड कृष्णा इन द भगवद गीता सेज दातव्यमिति यद्दानम दीयतेन उपकारिणे देशे काले च पात्रे च तद्दानम सात्विकम स्मृतम. मतलब जो दान बिना किसी एक्सपेक्टेशन के दिया जाता है, और देशे काले च पात्रे च, देशे मीन्स एट द राइट प्लेस, काले मीन्स एट द अप्रोप्रिएट टाइम, एंड पात्रे मीन्स दोज हु डिजर्व इट. दैट दान इज कॉल्ड सात्विक. तो ये CSR का एलिमेंट ऑलरेडी एम्बेडेड है. देन सोशल में सबको साथ लेने की बात वो भी है. सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः, सबके भले की कामना करते हैं. और जो हमारी गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया या प्रधानमंत्री जी भी कहते हैं कि वसुधैव कुटुम्बकम, पूरी वसुंधरा ही एक कुटुंब है. तो ये जो सारी बातें हैं, ये CSR और ESG के फॉर्म में हम कहते हैं अच्छी बात है, बट ये हमारा ऑलरेडी पार्ट ऑफ कल्चर है. दूसरी चीज़, ये बाय डिफ़ॉल्ट भी वो है, जैसे हम इंडस्ट्री में कहते हैं कि सेफ्टी इज हुज बिजनेस, Not that the fire and safety department only will take care. It is our responsibility. सबकी responsibility है. Safety is everybody's business. So same way, CSR and ESG are essential ingredients or integral parts of our industrial or organizational setup, whatever it may be, whether it is education sector, industry or whatever. So now come to governance. E बता दिया आपको, S बता दिया, अब बचा G. गवर्नेंस भी हमारे उसमें एम्बेडेड है. कैसे? अगर जिन्होंने चाणक्य को पढ़ा होगा, कौटिल्यम जो अर्थशास्त्र उन्होंने लिखा है, उसके जो सूत्र हैं उसमें वो कहते हैं सबसे फंडामेंटल चीज़ क्या है? ही से सुखस्य मूलम धर्मः. ऐसा कौन सा है इस हाल में व्यक्ति है जो सुख नहीं चाहता? बताइए, हाथ खड़ा करिए. नहीं, हाथ खड़ा हुआ ना. सबको सुख चाहिए. तो सुख का फाउंडेशन क्या है? धर्म. धर्म मीन्स व्हाट इज योर ड्यूटी. धर्म इज नॉट विथ एनी रिलीजन. आपको जो करना है, आपका कर्तव्य है, वो धर्म है. धर्मस्य मूलम राज्यम. तो धर्म के फाउंडेशन क्या है? राज्यम. दैट मीन्स एंटरप्राइज. दैट मीन्स व्हेन वी bring together all kinds of resources and create an enterprise, then only value creation is possible. अकेला चढ़ना बाहर नहीं फोड़ सकता, इसलिए ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के या इंडस्ट्री की ज़रूरत पड़ती है. ठीक है. देन बहुत सारे सूत्र हैं, लेकिन मैं जो रिलेवेंट सूत्र वो टच करूँगा. ही से धर्मस्य मूलम अर्थ, अर्थस्य मूलम राज्यम, राज्य मूलम इंद्रिय जयः. दैट मीन्स whosoever is at the helm of affairs, the government or the king in olden times, उसका इंद्रिय जया होना चाहिए. दैट मीन्स जो कॉरपोरेट गवर्नेंस एंड एथिक्स की आज हम बोर्ड रूम के लिए बात करते हैं, वो चाणक्य ने सैकड़ों वर्षों पहले कह दी थी कि जो राजा होगा या रूलर होगा या गवर्नमेंट होगी, उसको एथिकल बिहेवियर डेमोन्स्ट्रेट करना पड़ेगा. राज्य मूलम इंद्रिय जया. तो बताइए कि CSR और ESG क्या हमारी कल्चर में एम्बेडेड नहीं है? है ना? अच्छा, कई बार लोग बात करते हैं कि यंग जनरेशन तो बड़ी गैर जिम्मेदार है, उनके एस्पिरेशंस अलग हैं वगैरह वगैरह. लेकिन मैं आपको बताना चाहता हूँ, आई वॉज द हेड ऑफ कॉरपोरेट लर्निंग एंड डेवलपमेंट एट द महारत्ना कंपनी लाइक गेल इंडिया लिमिटेड. वहाँ पे हम अपने न्यूली इंडक्टेड एग्जीक्यूटिव ट्रेनीज के लिए ओरिएंटेशन प्रोग्राम करते थे. तो जो भी हमारा सिस्टम था, हम एटलीस्ट ड्यूरिंग माय टेन्योर आई लेड लॉट ऑफ एम्फेसिस ऑन वैल्यूज़ एंड कल्चर. तो आप देखिए कि जो यंग बच्चे हैं, कॉलेज से पास होके आए हैं, उन्होंने कहा सर, उनके जब फर्स्ट सैलरी आई और मंडे टू फ्राइडे वाज वर्किंग, सैटरडे वाज हॉलीडे. तो सैटरडे बोले सर हम चांदनी चौक जाना चाहते हैं. उनका क्यों भाई? बोले सर हम अपनी फर्स्ट सैलरी का 50% चांदनी चौक में जाके रिक्शा वालों को देंगे. सो दिस इज़ व्हाट न्यू जनरेशन इज़. तो इसलिए हमको इसकी जो मूल स्पिरिट है उसको समझना होगा और इम्बाइब करना होगा, रादर देन इम्पोजिशन. यहाँ बात हो रही है ना कि कंप्लायंस टू ESG ड्रिवन. कंप्लायंस में तो फिर वो मज़ा नहीं आता, वो फिर आप हाफ हार्टेडली करते हैं. जैसे आप क्लास स्टूडेंट का एग्जांपल लीजिए कि असाइनमेंट मिलता है, एक स्टूडेंट बड़े सिंसियरली करता है, दूसरा हो या तो वो कॉपी कर लेता है. जो यहाँ पे कोई इंजीनियरिंग के स्टूडेंट्स होंगे, वो उसमें एक बड़ा पॉपुलर वर्ड है टोपो मार दिया, कॉपी कर दिया. तो वो लेकिन उसको ये नहीं पता कि प्रोफेसर भी बेवकूफ़ नहीं है, उसके भी बाल सफ़ेद हुए हैं. उसको पता है कि कौन बच्चा जेन्युइनली असाइनमेंट करके लाया, किसने टोपो मारा है. तो इसी तरह से हमको जब CSR के इम्प्लीमेंटेशन की बात होती है, तो उसमें अगर आप दिल से करेंगे, नॉट फॉर कंप्लायंस बट विथ कंपैशन एंड पैशन, then only we can achieve the real objective of CSR. And the father of CSR is sitting here, Bhaskar Chatterjee Sahab, and I hope that it is with that spirit only that this framework was created and it was brought into the form of part of company law and all. But basic spirit should never be forgotten. कोई भी काम अगर हम कैजुअली करते हैं तो आपको खुद को ही संतुष्टि नहीं होती। देखिए, मैं हमेशा कहता हूँ कि आप पूरी दुनिया से झूठ बोल सकते हैं, खुद से नहीं बोल सकते। तो दिस इज बड़ी सिंपल चीज़ें हमको समझ, हम कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी में हमको जाना ही नहीं है। जितना सिंपल रहेंगे, वो कपिल देव का एग्जाम्पल आता था एक्शन शूज़ का, उसमें कहता था सिंप्लिसिटी में अद्भुत शक्ति है। तो उस सिंप्लिसिटी से, उस सिंसियरिटी से, उस जेन्युइनिटी से जब हम CSR को देखेंगे और उसको इम्प्लीमेंट करेंगे, तब जाके सही मायनों। अब दूसरी चीज़ कोलेबोरेशन। हम जो पार्टनर चुनते हैं, NGO हो या इस तरह के ऑर्गेनाइजेशन हो, दैट आल्सो वी हैव टू सिलेक्ट केयरफुली। और उनके अंदर क्या खासियत होनी चाहिए? एक तो ये है कि दे शुड बी वेरी गुड एट कम्युनिकेशन, दे शुड बी एथिकल एंड ट्रांसपेरेंट। ये नहीं कि साहब ग्रांट मिल गई उसको इधर उधर कर दिया है, ये भी कोई ऐसी चीज़ नहीं है जो किसी से छुपी है। ऐसे भी बहुत केसेस होते हैं, एबरेशंस तो होते ही हैं। तो एक तो हमको वो देखना है कि जेन्युइन पार्टनर कौन है। दूसरा ये है कि उसकी इफ़ेक्टिवनेस। अभी मेरे प्रीवियस स्पीकर ने इफ़ेक्टिवनेस की बात की। बड़ा एक किताब में मैंने बड़ा अच्छा पढ़ा था, एक ऑथर ने लिखा है कि वी वैल्यू व्हाट वी मेजर and we measure what we value. So that is the fundamental for impact assessment. Then एक जो हमारे पार्टनर्स होते हैं, they should be agile enough. ऐसा नहीं कि हमने एक प्रोजेक्ट जो कर दिया, जैसे गेल का इंस्टॉलेशन वहाँ झाबुआ में था, ट्राइबल एरिया है, तो जो प्रोजेक्ट या जो कॉन्टेक्स्ट झाबुआ के लिए एप्लीकेबल है, इट मे नॉट necessarily be applicable in Dibrugarh. So the partner should be wise enough and mature enough to understand the changes and adapt to such changes with agility. तो और आप देखिए, मैंने नोट्स तो बहुत से लेके आया था, लेकिन मैंने सोचा कि थोड़ा सा डिफरेंट फ्लेवर दिया जाए तो शायद सब लोगों को अच्छा अलग से भी लगेगा। और तीसरी और लास्ट चीज़ जो कह के मैं बात ख़त्म करूँगा, वो बातें तो हम पूरे दिन भी कर सकते हैं, लेकिन मुद्दे की बात करें, सीधी बात, नो बकवास। वो प्रभु चावला का आता था ना टीवी पे शो। तो हमारा जो अप्रोच होना चाहिए, वेदर इट इज़ टुवर्ड्स मेजरमेंट ऑफ इम्पैक्ट और वेदर असेसमेंट ऑफ द कैपेबिलिटी ऑफ आवर पार्टनर, आवर अप्रोच towards accountability system should be that of learning and improvement rather than punishment. Usually human tendency क्या होता है कि कहीं कुछ गड़बड़ हो गई, हम देखते हैं, फॉल्ट फाइंडिंग करते हैं, ऐसा क्यों हुआ, कौन है, स्केपगोट ढूंढते हैं। लेकिन इस अप्रोच से तो किसी का भला होने वाला नहीं है। हमें ये देखना है कि कहाँ कमी रह गई और उसको हम आगे कैसे इम्प्रूव कर सकते हैं। तो ऐसे हमको पार्टनर मिलेंगे, इस माइंडसेट के होंगे, then this collaboration will be effective and in tune with the time, and implementation of or assimilation of digital technology is of utmost important, जिससे आपको continuous monitoring, real time monitoring होती है, जिससे आपके बहुत से issues iron out हो जाते हैं। देखिए, communication सबसे बड़ी चीज़ है। Chatterjee sir will agree with me, he has done lot of work in HRD also. मेन पेन पॉइंट होता है हम कम्युनिकेट नहीं करते। वो आइसोलेशन में काम कर रहा है, यहाँ से मॉनिटरिंग करने वाला वो डेटा ले रहा है, वो खाली डेटा देख के, अरे कॉन्टेक्स्ट तो देखो। मैं अगर कॉर्पोरेट ऑफिस में बैठा हूँ, मेरी ड्यूटी बनती है कि मैं जाऊँ झाबुआ में, देखूँ कि ग्राउंड पे क्या हो रहा है, और अगर अपेरेंटली जो मुझे गैप दिख रहा है या फेल्यूर दिख रहा है वो क्यों है, एंड हाउ कैन आई enable the proper implementation of the project. With these words, I conclude here, and thank you very much.
Namaskar. Firstly, I would like to extend my sincere thanks to National CSR Network. I would also like to start off by acknowledging Anilji, your work. A lot of my CSR and sustainability knowledge is thanks to the Mint, because the beautiful way in which Mint really captures very complex phenomena, reportage, That has helped me a great deal. So thank you so much to you and your team. Also, I would like to thank the organizers for putting me as part of this very illustrious panel where all these men have done fantastic work. I'm actually here to focus on, and I have never used a PowerPoint in my life. I was on this very stage 2 weeks back where I delivered a keynote address where a lot of the points that were spoken by my predecessors here. But I think I'm here to talk about not 3 alphabets, ESG or CSR, but about 2 alphabets. Actually 3, N-O-T, not. All of us, human beings, and I'm going to talk very simple. Not K-N-O-T. Many of us who are heading CSR and sustainability, we are always in knots. But I'm here to talk about N-O-T, not. And that's why I decided to stand up here, because part of the word conclave has O-N, on. So you might be sitting here, but if your brain is not on, if your intent is not on, if your passion is not on, the country is not on. So all of us here, I want to appreciate, no matter where you come from, some of you come from NGOs, some of you come from academia, you have all been part of this journey of the country, where India is the first country in the world, ladies and gentlemen, and it's a matter of great pride, where India is the first country in the world to have had a CSR legislation. India is the first country in the world where today we are celebrating a decade of one of the most difficult public policies that has been made in this country. And the architect of that public policy, ladies and gentlemen, is here with us. Father of CSR and sustainability in India, Dr. Bhaskar Chatterjee. So, we are really honored, sir. For me, it is a huge honor to be speaking in front of you, sir. And it's a huge achievement. It makes me very proud to be an Indian that India has achieved this feat. So let me start with NOT, N-O-T. And I think my panelists said this. Somebody spoke about that there's no definition of CSR. Absolutely right. And there is a reason why there is no definition of CSR. I will not get into that. The father himself is here. We minnows are nobody to speak when the father speaks. But when I talk of not, please look at your schedule, and I will stick to my brief. My job here is to make you think. The reason I deliberately wore black and white is to tell you that sustainability is not black or white. Sustainability is a rainbow. CSR is not this rose that I have in my pocket just because I want to look good. But CSR, or rather ESG, and I want to make this difference. It's a complex topic. I don't want to get into that. How many of you think CSR and ESG are the same things? Because the panel discussion topic says ESG-Driven CSR. And it's my job here, it's my duty here as a panelist to put matters into context. When I first read the topic, I was a little confused. What is ESG-Driven CSR? But then I was so happy, and I want to compliment the National CSR Network team, because the reason they have put this is to make us think. And that is why I'm here. And I will try to put that into perspective. So therefore, how many of you think ESG is equal to CSR? Just put your hands up. Because we're calling about ESG-driven CSR. So that means ESG and CSR should be the same thing. Nobody agrees that ESG and CSR are the same thing. Is ESG and sustainability the same thing? Part of it. Okay, great. Is CSR and sustainability the same thing? So you're all confused, and that's why this National CSR Network Conclave this year is so relevant. Because I am so confused in my life all the time. And whenever I'm confused, I go back to 3 questions. Why, what, and how? And trust me, this will really help you. You can also apply this to your personal life. And when we talk of why, the most important question, therefore, for me, is not ESG or CSR, but is the why. Why do we exist? Why does business exist in society? What is the role of business in society? How should business be ethical? Let's come back to the NOT, N-O-T. Another important, in N-O is a very important word, hidden. or these two alphabets are part of a larger word called innovation, N-O, right? And innovation only starts with people like us who do not say yes to everything. Today, Bhaskar Chatterjee, sir, given all the opposition that he had, or given the fact that so many of our parliamentarians, our public policy makers in this country, they always said, "Nahi, ye nahi ho sakta hai. This is such an uphill task. It is impossible." So therefore, you need people who will get out of their comfort zone and stand. And not just stand. You will stand up for others who cannot stand. And that is why I'll keep it very simple. When I talk of partnerships, I just want, that's the word that I am, or that's the philosophy that drives me. How many of you have heard of Baba Amte? All of you from Maharashtra would have heard of Baba Amte. And for me, when we talk of partnerships and corporate partnerships, all of this is great. But the kind of impact that Baba Amte and so many others in our country, and I want to pay a rich tribute to them, he just said one line. When he was asked that what is so different about the work that you do and so many others, or the work that happens from India. And he said, "I believe that we should work with the people, not for the people." Just simple. And that's why I think, sir, aap jo bole the simplicity, that's it. And you will see that just this approach is so different. When you work for the people, you are doing arrogance-based CSR. You are doing money-based CSR. You are doing strength-based CSR. You are doing competition-based CSR. The moment you say that I am working with somebody, it requires you to be like them, to understand them. So therefore, ESG, E stands for empathy. And the reason I say this is because I myself have been doing that for the last 15 years. And I'm sure many of you have been doing that. So ESG has to be a boardroom agenda, just like CSR is a boardroom agenda. But it cannot only be a boardroom agenda. It also has to be one where your leadership team understands, because the world looks very different from down there and up there. Coming back to the panel discussion topic, and I will stick to that. I just, some of you have been my students, some of you I've worked with. It's lovely to see. Some of them have been my gurus, and Dr. Chatterjee is one of them. So I actually just, what I'm saying straight from the heart, and I'm just trying to, be like a tailor. All that my panelists have said, I'm just trying to put that in perspective. So basically, what is it that I'm not going to talk about? So what is the first word? And this is the way in which I am trying to undo. So, somebody said that we are very sorry that women are not part of this panel. That is a great realization. But what do we do about it? What about the action? So as a gender-sensitive male, I want to also hear the women. I want you to be part of what I'm talking. So it's great that the men have acknowledged that we have not been sensitive to listening to women. But the question is, what to do about it? Is it just a mere tokenism? Next time, just if I have a woman here, is it enough? No. So what is enough when we hear you? And that's why I'm asking you ladies now in the house. Make yourself feel heard. We are no longer living in an old India. We are today talking of a Naya Bharat, and that Bharat is led by women, of women, for women. So what is the first word? Ladies, please also look at the schedule, because we have printed paper. So let's at least look at the schedule. The first word is stakeholder. But for me, I'm not going to talk here about stakeholder. You know what I'm going to talk about? Take shoulder. Take shoulder. Is it rhyming with stakeholder? What do I mean by take shoulder? Hanji? Responsibility, exactly. And I'll also give you a brief. How many of you know who came up with this term called stakeholder? Any of you know? Because what's the point of talking about something if you don't know the history of it? And I'm just, just setting the context for Dr. Chatterjee, because, he also has limited time. So I'm just, laying the seed so that the father can actually do. Right, I'll wrap up, yes. But we must be fair, because I may not have that much of knowledge as the others, but I just want to be more or less equity is important. the last is not the lost. Okay, coming back to, so take shoulder, which you said, right, ma'am? And the reason I'm saying this is because these are some things you will remember. This will be important when you actually make your ESG plans. ESG or CSR work cannot happen unless there is an emotional connect. So no matter how much of CSR and ESG budgets that you allocate, unless there is an emotional connect, unless you are able to break the trust deficit, and we're talking of partnerships, and I'll give you an example because I spent time on the field. One of the companies, and again, what Shastry Saab said, it was actually somebody from your ministry, sir. I went to inaugurate it. When the whole Swachh Bharat Abhiyan and toilet making was in vogue, everybody wanted to make better toilets. And everybody said, we want to make better commodes or give better commodes. So one PSU, believe it or not, actually gave silver-plated commodes in one of the most rural areas. And you know what happened to that. So I don't even get into that. Okay. The second, what I want to talk about is not collaboration, but co-creation. When we talk of collaboration and partnership, it's all very good to say in your ESG policy, we collaborate. Question is, what are the terms of that partnership? Do you partner as equals? No, you don't. Corporates do not see NGOs as their equals. We still think of them as they are our donee and we are the donor. So unless we develop this sense of equal footing, where we treat NGOs, and I know for a fact that when NGOs submit utilization certificate, corporates still ask them, you have submitted a bill for 100 rupees dosa. Dosa is available for 10 rupees. But if the same corporate guy were to go to a 5-star, would he be asked that question? No. So instead of collaboration, I want to talk about this concept, which is again from the word laboration. Shun the lab, and that's what I have done as an academic. And that is what I... Oh, I'll end in a 1 minute. One, yes, exactly. So shun the lab. Many of us are armchair academics. We are obsessed with research and data, but the real laboratory is on the field. And I'm a strong believer, despite being from the academic world, knowledge is not created in universities. Knowledge is created on the field by people like you. And that is what we must validate. And the last is ESG. Many of you spoke about ESG. And Dr. Chatterjee will talk about what the government of India is doing today, where India has embarked on a pathway which will make India the first ever country in the world to have its own ESG reporting standards. And that entire responsibility is on Dr. Chatterjee's shoulder. Sir, we are so proud of this initiative by the government of India. And therefore, when we talk of ESG, for me, ESG is not environmental social governance because everybody talks about it. But for me, ESG is about a word that Shastry Saab used, effective and efficient. Effectiveness is not the same as efficiency. As managers, we want to be efficient. But question is, are we effective? The S stands for spiritual, and the G stands for gurus. So for me, ESG equals effective and efficient spiritual gurus. I want to say this very strongly. I believe in this very strongly. We have been lectured enough by the global north and the west. What should be India's sustainability targets? India is already, by the way, as part of the G20, we are doing far, far better. In fact, we have overcrossed all our climate action targets. So this is the time for India. This is the time for Bharat as the Vishwa Guru. And like you said, sir, culture and values, that is our core competence. That is our competitive advantage. And therefore, for me, when we teach about CSR and ESG, there are 3 spiritual gurus for me. Swami Vivekananda. If you really look at the CSR and the ESG, and I'll end, sir, 10 seconds. This is important to pay homage to our heroes. I think we give a lot of undue importance to all the Carols and Kramers and Porters. We have our own Bhaskar Chatterjees and so many of them. So J.R.D. Tata, second spiritual guru. And he spoke about all that we're talking about just in one line. What comes from the people must go back to the people several times over. And of course, the final, for me as a CSR student, as a sustainability student, I think deep honor, sir, for you to have made this public policy legislation. And I tell my family every single day, the reason I get 2 square meals or 3 square meals at home, the reason why many NGOs today in our country have 3 square meals at home is because of Dr. Bhaskar Chatterjee and his entire team and all the parliamentarians and all our politicians who showed political will and came up with the CSR legislation. Thank you. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.
I dread this Indian word, 2 minute, so it can stretch from literally 2 minutes to anything. No, not directed at you, directed at all of us. So unfortunately, we are out of time. I just got 4 minutes left, and I have 2 options before me. Sir, since you're in the audience, would you like to ask one question of the panel, anybody in the panel?
This panel has been absolutely amazing. I've had so many perspectives from each one of you. And this is what I'll say, of course, in my keynote address which follows. But to each one of you, now that CSR and ESG have come to stay, and whether we like it or not, both have become mandatory, how can we actually integrate them? The whole purpose of this conclave is only one. How are you every day, any one of you can answer this, how are you integrating the two practically?
Because we're out of time, I'll put, okay, why did the consultant go? Okay, fine, go ahead.
It's directly to industry, so I think it's...
So I think we too are from the industry. You want to answer? Please.
You carry on.
Okay. As I told earlier also, we are trying to identify our strength through our materiality assessment and areas of intervention, and trying to invest maximum CSR spend related to that area. That is the fundamental approach that we are trying to follow. Although it's very difficult because ESG is something is very talking about your internal thing, and it is somehow conflicting with the CSR purposes also, because CSR is more towards doing good for the society. Those are your stakeholders, but they are not your shareholder or you're not part of the core business thing. So we are trying to leverage our strength for the societal goods, and ESG is helping in that. That is my perspective. It may be different from others also.
Sir, what I feel, sir, still we are working in a silo, sir. The CSR and ESG, this is not in a together. So we are working differently. So we need to have somewhere, it has to merge and work in a tandem, sir. Then only we can release it.
Mr. Ji, I'll give you an example. This is not my example. This is example shared by the greatest president India ever had, Dr. Abdul Kalam. In one of the session which he spoke about, I think he talked about individual CSR the best. He said he had a driver. He used to drive car and he used to go to the site. So he had a problem because his son was in 11th standard and he had 2 and he has taken science and he didn't know what to do. He said, मैं उसको पढ़ाऊंगा कैसे? He said, मैं तुमको पढ़ाऊंगा, तुम उसको पढ़ा देना. He said, I taught every day science to my driver, and my driver attained master's degree. So we live in a community where there are lots of people who can be taught. One of the greatest example, individual CSR commitment. One man taught the father and father taught the son.
Okay, we are out of time.
I just want to, sorry sir, actually as you talk about, I just give you one example for that. The water neutrality is very important aspect, or water positivity. There are difference in both, but we want to want to create more water for the society. So we identified we have certain water consumption and we want to conserve more and more water for the community. So we identify while conserving the water, how can we improve the livelihood of farmers. So we linking that dot through our ESG domain.
Okay, thank you. And on that note, we will call it a wrap. I'm sorry, we're really out of time on this. And I think we are between you and the lunch, so.
Can I just respond to your question? No, it's important for him to understand the concept. She's agreed. Is it okay?
If it's okay with you, is it?
Half a minute. Half a minute, absolutely. Just to respond to Dr. Chatterjee, so I think this is very, very important conceptually for all of you to know that in India, if you want to understand sustainability, if you want to understand sustainability reporting, all that you have to understand is the NGRBC, the National Guidelines on Responsible Business Conduct, which are 9 principles of business. And of course, Dr. Chatterjee will take you through the entire how the NGRBC was revised. But please understand, in India, that's all you need to know, those 9 principles. If you don't know that, you're at the right place. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for this wonderful session.